Good morning, everyone. We will be talking on a panel, and the panel discussion is going to be opportunities for growth in a post-recession economy. So taking you through a little bit of an intro, and then we'll introduce you to all the panelists here in a moment. Today's panel is made up of companies that have not only survived, but thrived from 2008 to 2010, which were tough years for anyone that was in the service industry. And that's no surprise that as 2011 trends upward, these companies, already poised, are capitalizing on that growth with smart approaches, best practices, and insight into the best tools to get their clients and staff fully engaged in the new conversation. In this hour, we'll have the opportunity to hear from each of these industry leaders as they discuss different tools that will improve their agency's service offering and give them an edge in this post-recession economy. Our job as agencies is to aid the growth of much larger organizations. What works today, however, does not always work tomorrow. While basic principles endure, we need to stay current on the details to be relevant at all times. As a rough structure for our conversation today, we will discuss some of the factors presented in Accenture's recent report, Growth Strategies in the New Reality. The same success factors really do still apply. On behalf of myself and all the panelists, we'd like to thank QuantumDigital for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today, and we're very honored to be a part of the Marketing, Innovation, and Discovery Summit. So with that said, our panelists here to my left, we have Sri Raju, who is the president and founder of Smartbridge. Christopher Justice, he is the chief executive officer and co-founder of Sparksight. And Justin Singer, the founder and president of SMBology. Eric Deziel, the vice president of strategy at Channel Fusion. And Kirsten Cutshall, the president of Steel Advertising and Interactive. So now, let's get started. Again, we encourage everyone to please tweet us any questions you have to using the Summit hashtag, which is MI&DS 11. So with that said, here's my little clickers. That's right here. Okay. Here we are. Again, we will be focusing on the three factors: market sensing, how we can do that better for our clients and our agency, continuous improvement and innovation, and effective and agile operations. So again, we're going to take a question. Again, they'll kind of answer questions as the conversations come up. So to start off the conversation, overall, what is your sense of the world of the outsourced agency that has changed by the recent recession and recovery? Is that a good or a bad thing?
I'll go ahead and take it. I think that just kind of watching what's happened recently, going into the recession and the recovery, we saw us leaving a time when, integration and all of the effects of technology were really at their peak and spending was at a high. And as agencies, we were really confronted with a lot of optimization and work on mechanics. The focus on metrics and the focus on really fine-tuning really made it, to some degree, tiring on agencies because there was such a focus on things that traditionally, agencies really hadn't been jazzed about. We were working mostly on optimization for our clients. The good thing that happened when the recession happened for agencies is that our clients began to take the means of production back in-house. As budgets shrank and as people began to be a little thriftier, they began to pull some of that end-to-end integrated marketing back in-house, pull some of the measurement back onto their own shoulders, embrace a lot of the innovations that had happened in the recent years and sort of get on top of all of the change that had just occurred. And that returned the work that was going out to agencies back to the stuff that we really got excited about. And we got back to doing innovation. And the companies that were still spending with us anyway, in the last few years, were the companies that no matter what conditions were going on in the market, always invested in growth. Companies that kept focused on growth. And so as an agency, we began to do the work that we loved again. We began to focus on innovation. We began to focus purely on companies that were growth oriented. That was very, very exciting for us. It allowed us to get back to doing the things that we loved again. It sparked creativity again, and it was really exciting. That being said, the change, though, that came out of that, and the reason that it really wasn't like going just, straight back to where we were before the end-to-end marketing focus, is that consumers had changed. Not only had the consumers changed to be more frugal in the marketplace, but our clients had changed to be more frugal. I mean, there was a sensibility that Jeff referred to that has returned in spending in general, and that sensibility returned with our clients. And so we have seen that all of our decisions have to be done in a much more informed framework. And there's been a research renaissance. So what we're seeing is that we are pushed to be very innovative. We are pushed to the boundaries of our creativity. But at the same time, we are seeing that these growth-oriented companies that are coming out in front as the recovery occurs and as spending begins to pick up are also spending on research again. And for a company like ours, who's very research-oriented and very curious and really kind of into looking at consumer behavior and leading with those type of ideas, we find that very exciting. But I would call that sort of the neoclassic approach to communications that's going on right now. So that's what we're seeing.
I'm going to add to something what Kirsten mentioned. We at Smartbridge. Is that coming okay? Mm-hmm. We at Smartbridge, we focus a lot on technology. We are all about technology. We're less about marketing. We have marketing products, but I work with CEOs and CFOs and CMOs all the time. And amazingly, over the last year or so, I hear so many stories of people in the companies at the top level. The CEO looks at some article somewhere. My competitor is doing this. I saw, we work with quick service restaurants, McDonald's competitors, and all those people. He looks at Starbucks, oh, they're doing mobile-enabled payment. Or somebody else is doing something else. They come running to the office and say, why can't we do this? Why can't we do this? Of course, they cut back the last 2 years on a lot of spending. Now, all of a sudden, they want the solutions because they see so much activity in the market, right? So how do they get that service and those kind of enablement in order to support their growth strategy as they come out of recession? Very challenging situation because they want answers today, or they want answers tomorrow or yesterday, and they can't get it. I mean, technology is not easy. I mean, it takes effort, it takes planning, and it takes a lot of perseverance to actually get there. And really the choices are, do I build it in-house? Hey, my IT doesn't have the capability to build it in-house. They don't have the skills. They've cut IT a lot in the last 2 years. So even otherwise, they don't typically have the skills to enable the marketing solutions. They don't speak marketing language. And then, so where do they go? They have to go out. They have to go out to technology companies. They have to go out to marketing companies that are innovative in the digital space, because that's really where most of the buzz is and most of the activity is. So tremendous opportunities now coming out of recession, where a lot of companies want to do a lot of things very quickly, and the companies that are ready to support it with their capabilities, because you have to walk the talk now, because they want it fast.
Eric? Or Chris?
Chris. I think it's really changing because people have been accustomed to kind of a return on investment. Now it's really a return on awareness. And as an agency, we actually augment larger agencies in addition to the in-house marketing team. So we saw the economy contract. You were getting amazing talent for really bargain basement pricing, in terms of salaries and so forth. Those individuals were sitting in big organizations making very holistic marketing decisions, and then outsourcing certain strategic elements, social media, video production, live streaming, to gain that awareness to agencies like ours. So no longer were we involved in the concept to execution for the holistic campaign. We were a component of the fulfillment of that overall campaign that was orchestrated by some very, very intelligent people. And I think, frankly, and humbly, that people have kind of grown up and become more intelligent about marketing. Marketing is not rocket science. It's certainly changing. The concept of pushing a message out to people doesn't resonate anymore. So people are pulling information. I don't watch television. I ignore commercials. I have to be force-fed television commercials like I've seen today. And I think they're brilliant, and they're emotionally changing. I mean, they actually have an emotional effect on me. But I don't watch the media. I don't use that medium anymore. And so the consumers are changing, and we're now seeing a whole new generation of marketers that are using some very unconventional means, but have ignored this concept of holistic marketing and are very tactical and are awareness-based. And that's where the agencies are getting smaller and smaller slices of a bigger awareness pie.
I would agree with everything that's been said so far, and so I don't want to repeat, but one thing that we've noticed is embrace uncertainty. So when the recession hit, everybody got very scared, and now we're starting to see that things are picking up a little bit, but there's still uncertainty. Is this going to stay? Is it going to moderate? Is it going to go down? What's going to happen? And when you have uncertainty, people become tentative. And so we're seeing our clients tentative about making some commitments as far as hiring, as far as doing some things in-house that they may have been more predisposed to do when times were great. And yet they're seeing things picking up, and they're seeing their competitors who may have invested pre-recession ahead of them. And maybe they were even on track to do some of those things before we all got shocked by what happened. And so we have this time of uncertainty, and for us, embracing uncertainty has created tremendous opportunities, because where our customers see a need but may be unwilling to address it in other ways, they're reaching out, they're clamoring, and so we can be partners to help them. And so I think embracing uncertainty is something to really keep front and forward and help customers do that.
Yeah, I think we've touched pretty much on everything. If I sum it up for me, it's that there are fewer of these larger projects that are coming in front of us, one, and the cycle to bring these ideas inside these organizations is much longer. So I think what it's meant for us is to be much smarter about who we go after in terms of selling your value proposition. And two, I think it's forced us to customize and segment how we present ourselves. I think that the idea of having our agency be solving all their needs is not really a good way to open up the door.
Okay, thank you. Now kind of moving on to the next topic, which is market sensing. As spending returns, there's a desire for companies to invest with consumer insight and intelligence. The result is a research renaissance, as Kirsten mentioned. With that said, what social media, research innovations, and metric tools are you using to improve your clients' ability to sense the needs and opportunities in the market?
I can probably start with that. There's a fundamental thing that we believe in, which is what cannot be monitored cannot be measured, and what cannot be measured cannot be managed. And marketing, like anything else, is a process, right? You have variations in the process and innovations in the process, but the fundamental thing of monitor, measure, manage doesn't go away. And in today's world, as the CMO's tenure, average tenure is what, 2.5 years, just like a CIO, right? They have a very short period of time to make an impact, demonstrate what they are delivering to their CEO in order to not be a statistic of those 2.5 years. So which means that that agility and ability to demonstrate what the results are for what they're doing becomes even greater, which means that the measurement and monitoring and all those things become very important now. So it's all data and information coming from the data. So you have to capture data in today's world with the digital communication. You have a unique opportunity to mine a lot of data. And companies that are not on top of the data, yeah, if you do point solutions where it's not integrated strategy, then you will not be able to accumulate the right kind of profiling and all those things that you can do. So data, and then information, then you can then figure out how to use that to then create new opportunities to engage in the communications, right? So there are a lot of tools coming in the market. You see tools happening coming up every other day. We at Smartbridge, we looked at that problem early, and we looked at a cross-channel, with so many channels out there in the market today. Your typical marketing strategies will be, or campaigns will be touching upon multiple channels. So how do you look at your performance across those channels, and what is the return on investment, so that you can show it to your CEO what a great job you're doing as a CMO? That's what we looked at early on, and we built a product that several of our customers use for looking at the ROI-based measurement, which goes back to the monitor, measure, manage.
Chris?
We had to actually build our own. So our challenge was that our customers were exhibiting in hundreds of shows a year. So they were exhibiting with traditional paper materials at a conference or a trade show. If you've ever been to a trade show, you've certainly worn a lanyard, and you've seen barcodes. Sometimes there are RFID solutions embedded in that barcode or in that badge or lanyard. Sometimes there's both, RFID and barcodes and so forth. And if you've ever paid for a lead capture system at a trade show, you know how excessively priced they are, from $400 and $500 a head plus licensing fees. And that was, frankly, the leads that you got from a trade show were garbage. There was no way to score those, and they were coming in for people that just wanted the little giveaway or something for your booth. So the challenge from Northrop Grumman for us was, I need a low-cost way to capture high-quality leads that I can collaborate and score in real time on the trade show floor. So when that executive who's on that House Services Committee panel walks up to the booth, not only is he greeted personally with his voice, or with a voice that says, "Thank you, Colonel Johnson, for visiting the Northrop Grumman booth," but a flag and an email goes out directly to the sales rep who's across the show floor that he better get his ass over to the other side of the booth and actually engage with that client. So, that technology does not exist yet. We had to come up with a way to weave that experience into not only a large form factor digital display, a 65-inch touchscreen on a trade show floor, but engage with real-time notifications back into a marketing and automation system and a CRM system to score that lead in real time, and then to notify the appropriate account manager who's on the show floor that he needs to be in proximity of that individual. So that was something that the combination of digital technologies and digital touchscreen technologies, proximity and lead scoring in real time, is something that just frankly is not there. We had to build that solution in real time, and not only integrate that with 29 different lead capture systems, from RFIDs and barcodes and so forth. And that's frankly what we had to do. And then that actually became an entire product line for us. And we're now kind of reacting to the market because there's a huge void in technology right now. This is easy right now. The average return from an iPhone application right now is about $4,000. That's what you'll make annually. So there's certainly outliers in that. So that's one conduit to touching a consumer. And then on the back end, you have marketing automation and CRM, which has a measurable level of accountability, but doesn't take into the fact the human component, a person interacting with a piece of technology on a retail environment, or in a retail environment, on a trade show floor. And there's that gaping hole between the current email address and what actually happens, and what happens with the consumer, and then how that engagement gets unified in real time. And you've seen from examples like the Minority Report and so forth, that's where I think marketing has a huge hole to be fulfilled, is how do we connect people in real time together based on proximity and that user interaction model that's not the iPhone. It's more a large form factor and real time type of engagement on a trade show floor or in a retail environment.
Kirsten?
Am I on? Yeah. I will take an entirely different angle on that. We, on a research front, will use a lot of different technologies. I'm a big believer in the concept that people lie when asked directly about a product, and that the best thing that we can do is actually to observe them. And so we use a lot of social media tools to gather ethnographic research. So we'll use Facebook, we'll use Social Mention, we'll use Ning platforms to actually create environments where we can grab and perform ethnographic research online. And observe communities. We'll actually build insights communities and steering committees where we actually do then, invite counsel. We'll build communities and contests and try and get, input from people and do some crowdsourcing as well. We'll use simple resource tools like SurveyMonkey, Constant Contact. I love Bang the Table when you need something really quick. So there's a lot of things out there available. I would recommend for those of you that are local, Sentient Services. Paul Janowitz has some fantastic ways to conduct research technologically without having to actually form research groups, where you can do a lot of the usability online. There are so many fantastic research tools available. So on the research side, you can do so much without actually having to sit people in a room and do the old-fashioned research table where all their egos basically bounce against each other. Then on the side of metrics, everything has a metrics tool except for, I got to agree with you, Chris, there was no good solution in that space. So once you find your good solutions, the real problem is getting the comparison and getting the cost comparisons. So I think the biggest innovation recently is metrics aggregation and the ability to compare apples to apples against everything. And I gotta do a shout out also to Raj, because Smartbridge has a fantastic metrics aggregation tool called SmartNPM that is one of our favorites that I know is built for agencies and has been a big differentiator to us for our clients in helping them to justify the tactics that we do for them to up the chain.
Well, maybe one last thing is, as I think through actionable consumer insight, it's got to be aligned against a strategy. And what's interesting is that we're finding a lot of our clients are so busy and just keeping the ship afloat and getting things moving that the answer to the objectives or the strategy are not well stated. So we're having to do a lot of work on our end, consulting-wise, to figure out and establish the baseline or the benchmark that should be used. And it's kind of tricky because we're not paid to do that consulting work up front. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but we found that by investing in it, it has more than return it's worth for us in extra and additional work.
Thank you. Is this okay? So we've heard that while retention programs might have been a focus during the downturn, clients might be refocusing on acquisition. So what trends in clients' needs have you seen recently, and how have you adjusted your offering after the recession?
Like I said, I'm not a professional marketer, so I will have a limited set to talk about on this one. But some of the clients that we work with, because we deal with a lot of technology, we're all about systems integration and data and information for clients. I hear all the time about loyalty programs, enhancing loyalty programs, understanding the customers, creating customer profiling, those kind of things. As they work with marketers and collect information, a lot of the mid-sized companies that we work with, they don't have the systems and the processes to create the profiling that I'm talking about. And they're struggling with, how do I get that quickly so that I can get up in the digital space and start playing what I have to do. There's an interesting, just quick side note, interesting article that I read from Sun Microsystems about a year back. And this is about how do you evaluate the equity of a potential customer, and how do you know the value of the customer? Maybe a prospective customer. And we talk about digital space and Facebook and YouTube and websites and blogs and all those things. But how do you truly know who would be your most likely valued customer, and how do I keep track of those things? So this is called equity in community, which is online community. And any person, typically either they're a participant, active participant, or maybe a passive participant, or could be active contributor, or a passive contributor active. So you can actually measure by taking each person who is actually playing in the online space. We're talking about social media, and Jeff talked about creating collaboration between people, right? And people trust each other. So who is contributing the positive messaging on Facebook, for example, about your brand, about the brand? So if you can measure the amount of participation they're doing, an amount of contribution they're doing in a positive way, and enhance your loyalty programs to go to the next level where it's not just based on what they previously bought, but it's also based on their potential value to you based on how they're participating and how they're talking about your brand, then you can do a lot more with your marketing. And those are some of the evolutions that will happen. And companies are not there yet. I mean, they are still struggling. And I know agencies are struggling with that too, is everybody's trying to enhance their understanding and get to that new state. But eventually it's going to get there.
We actually did something kind of, sorry about that, Justin. We did something radical. We actually ignored the traditional principles of marketing and just focused on value systems. If you look at companies that are hyper successful, have had hyper growth, at the core of their strategies, they were focused on employee value systems. And so what we did, and you can see this on the front page of our website, we have a value system called I4, and I won't spend any time on that, but the number one principle is we hire, focused, friendly, and detail-oriented employees that are easy to work with. And as a part of that value system, we try to enable our customers to take over the work that we perform for them. Great example, for a project for National Financial Partners here based in Austin, we taught and enabled them to do their own video production and live streaming so that they outgrew us. And we continue to educate the customers with a very systematic approach. We have a project engagement site for every individual involved with a client. It's a step-by-step approach to doing a television commercial, to doing a digital kiosk, to creating a bridge and integration process into Salesforce or to Eloqua. And so they can just copy that process, put that on their own system, and then now build it in-house. So it's really teaching our employees to educate our customers so that our customers become self-sustaining, and then they come back to us and ask us to do more complex activities. So for me, it's really, our customers are not stupid. They need to be given as much information as we have, and if we don't know, we don't know. But give them the processes, let them implementing on their own, and then forcing a value system of employees in your agency to educate the customers and realize that what we're doing is not a mystery. It's not rocket science. And we teach them how to do what we do so that they can do it for themselves.
We are seeing that a lot of our customers are trying to bind themselves tighter to their biggest and best customers. And so the kind of things that they're asking us to do are direct byproduct of that. So we're getting engaged more on building very specialized portals that provide functionality on a very specific basis, whether it be self-service for a particular kind of need or information, whether it be a repository or an automation of an approval process. But these collaboration portals that we're building for our customers, that they're in turn choosing to buy from us as a means, A, to retain their best customers, but B, as an acquisition tool for some of their best customers. So we're seeing opportunities there. And as I talk with others in our space, and even in somewhat different spaces, I'm hearing the same kind of things. They have different ways of doing it, but the concept is, bind yourself closer to your best customers, either as a sales tool or as a retention tool. So they're making videos for their best customers as part of the onboarding process, or they are distributing a video conferencing system that they give to their best customer that binds them closer. But it's the same concept, bind closer. In terms of how our customers are asking us to engage with them, we are seeing a little bit different engagement model than we used to see. We've done a lot of work on a project basis, and now customers are starting to come to us and say, hey, would you think about doing it a little differently? Would you give us this person like 1 day a week for 52 weeks? Or would you give us this number we can call and get tuned into some information and some intelligence around something, and we want to get answers within this period of time? And we hadn't really thought about doing it quite that way before, but it seems like people have gone through a different way of thinking about engaging after this whole recessionary period. So a couple of things we've seen. I
will definitely agree with that. Just when I thought the retainer was dead, I have more retainer business than I have ever had. It just seems to be the only way to comfortably partner to be able to get your head around a lot of what Jeff was talking about when it comes to like the social creativity work that they were talking about, these abstract models where you work together to really affect messages, visuals, actions, things that really are kind of, what we used to call PR and advertising kind of coming together in the new digital world. That's really the only way to really just be flexible enough and in each other's space enough to fully develop those. So, I will say here with what the points that I think you guys were making, which is that people are getting very comfortable with chasing their best customers. And as part of that, what we're seeing, rather than seeing it through looking through their data or through seeing it through building best technology solutions to get closer to those customers, we're seeing it with them really honing their brand and not being afraid to hone their brand, to come out with a very strong brand that stands for something and isn't afraid if maybe some people don't like it. Because there was a time when everybody wanted to be vanilla. And you'd say, well, you're just going to be vanilla. And they'd say, well, I want to be really, really good vanilla. And you'd say, there's just no vanilla that good. And they wouldn't hear it. But now they're comfortable if they are pistachio, and there's a big part of the room that doesn't like pistachio because they know the people that buy pistachio will pay more for it. And they'll keep coming back to the store that sells pistachio. And so we're seeing branding becoming much more important. We're really working more closely with our customers in general on their product, their pricing, a lot of issues that traditionally just fall outside of what you would call advertising. It's just kind of a messy and wonderful relationship where we're working very closely with our clients.
And what I find fascinating in the hypothesis that's stated there, which is companies focusing more on retention. My organization works with clients like Microsoft, Michelin, John Deere, and we get to see every piece of advertising that is done by their dealers, by their independent retailers. And I would venture to say that no more than 10% of their spending will be on retention. And we did not really see a change in that spending during this recession period. So I think there's still a lot of room for focusing on retention and bring that back to the surface.
Great, thank you. While measuring tactics has become table stakes, metrics is still a hot button for clients. How do you and your agency stand out?
Well, I already talked about monitor, measure, manage. I think that's becoming more and more important. As companies, what I see is a lot of companies that we work with, everybody's becoming mature compared to 10 years back. Companies are becoming a lot more mature. And you see, in technology, data warehousing, business intelligence is a very hot topic. And that's more for the internal operations, not necessarily for marketing. But as they gain maturity in that, they're asking the same questions. The CEO is asking the same questions. Okay, marketing, now, till now, you had a budget, you're spending a budget. Now, show me your results. So measurement is, they're being asked for the metrics and the measurement. Marketing has to manage what they're doing along the same lines. So this is becoming more and more important. And every RFP that we see, we partner with a lot of agencies, and agencies work with us because of our measurement tool that Kirsten talked about. And every RFP that we see, the RFP talks about, show us what measurement tools you have and what are you going to do to measure how the campaign is performing. So this is big, at least we see a lot of importance for that. And that's why you see a lot of tools coming up. A lot of tools are focused on social media and analytics and monitoring the sentiment and all those things. We haven't seen a whole lot on cross-channel view aggregation type of tools, and that's why we focus on that one. But regardless, I mean, it's becoming more and more important, and it's here to stay. It's here to stay, and agencies that have not aligned with certain tools to differentiate themselves have to do that right away, because otherwise you're already starting on a back foot because others are doing it.
I think in addition to having great metrics, you have to be able to read them. Our focus in metrics discussions is around a discussion of the social sciences. So we sort of take the discussion to the next level. We talk about having the great tool to look at everything through an aggregation, and then being able to actually interpret it. What does it mean as far as behavior? And having other things, other lenses in order to be able to say, when you see that, what does that mean? What's meaningful? What type of gender split really is a gender split, and when is it just an overrepresentation because women tend to fill out surveys? If you don't have that on staff as well, the metrics pretty much are sort of like, turning over raw data to your client, or, finding ways to justify your existence. It loses objectivity, and it doesn't add value. They can do that themselves, and they should. That's a basic belief of our agency, is whatever a client can do themselves, they should. It's the stuff that they can't do themselves that they should outsource. So our agency really brings a layer of social science to the table as well.
There are 300 plus metrics to a traditional SEO type formula, and that metric for ranking always changes on a daily basis. Today we're trying to figure out how to measure a consumer. Traditionally it's been an email address. Did they open that email? That's bogus. I mean, my favorite link today is unsubscribe. Everything that you send me, I will unsubscribe to it. Social media, also bogus. I mean, how many followers does it really matters? Is there any systematic evidence that awareness and that visibility actually produces revenue? We're focused purely on managing and collecting information that as happens in a physical space. So for example, I can tell you how many people stood in front of a digital display in an airport or on a trade show floor, how long they stayed there, where their eyes made contact with the screen, what their name is, their title. All of that information is pulled in real time, and that information is actionable. I can use that, and I can change the way that the displays look on the show floor. I can change the way the displays look in the retail environment, because I can directly correlate that information to the number of blue jeans that were sold based on transactional activity that happens at the register. Point of sale is being integrated directly into marketing automation, customer relationship management systems in real time. So that's the data to me that really matters. And I'm not dissing on social media per se. I think it has a place and it has a value, but like I started with, there are thousands of metrics now to measure the actual tangible value of a customer. But I care about the eyeballs. I care about the guy who's standing in front of the display and makes a purchasing decision based on what I've shown him. And that to me has the most tangible value. And today, this is going to be the new method for me to track that individual. We're about 6 months away from having transactional and wallet payments that happen over NFC-based protocols on the iPhones, on the Android devices. There are new payment methods that are happening automatically right now with Starbucks. People are trying payment methods with QR codes. That's what I can measure. You will see, and mark my words, within the next 12 months, on top of that point-of-sale environment, you will see a tiny camera. And they will not only be able to recognize your face or a QR code or whatever, but they'll correlate that information against a marketing database, and there won't be any email address associated with it. So email is one element of this that's of tangible importance to us right now. But in 5 years, will have less significance than it's ever had.
I'll have to get a big hat to cover my face whenever I go shopping from now on.
Yeah.
Just one small thing that I would add to the conversation about metrics is, so some of the work that we do for our customers supports the marketing portion of the business, and some of it supports other areas, where it be an operational piece or a sales piece. So we're doing a lot of work with metrics and dashboards and so forth. And one of the things that we found bears repeating, even though it's sort of obvious, is that when you put the dashboard out there, you put the metrics in front of people, if you can put it in front of every person that could have any influence on those numbers, they can act on it more quickly and more meaningfully. I think we saw in the keynote, we saw how if you do something which engages people and they can see how them interacting with it changes the result, whether it be tap dancing down a piano staircase instead of going on an escalator. Well, if I can push this button over here and it'll affect that dashboard, and every single person that touches it knows that, I think you get better results. And so it's a very small thing, but just getting that dashboard and the metrics in front of every person that can do it. And I've been pretty amazed with the technology out there right now that has just allowed that to happen much more easily than it ever could. So I think that's a bit of a shift for the better that's happened over the last few years.
Thank you. Moving next on to continuous improvement and innovation. We've just talked a lot of things being trackable. What other priorities are you seeing develop in the marketplace, and what new things is your company doing to answer them?
Probably I'll start with that. From at least the kind of interaction that I have with our clients, CEOs are asking for agility in some of the new marketing stuff. They want yesterday, they want it today. I read an article, CFO reads an article, comes to the CEO and asks, why can't we have this? CEO looks at his IT, CIO, and asks, why can't I have it? CEO says, time out, I can't give it to you, I have too many other things. That's the reality. I don't know how many of you have to work with as agencies in organizations where you butt heads with the CIO or somebody within the IT organization, right? That happens all the time. And the reality is CIO doesn't understand marketing language. CMO can't go to CIO because they don't speak IT language. And there's a big gap. And you butt heads with the CIO, and next thing you know, everybody's frustrated because IT is not able to deliver, and something happens. So really, one thing that I see is now with the pace at which things are happening, CIOs are being forced to work with the CMOs and the CEOs to make these things happen. Now, some of these things, to be smart about how you do these things, you have to outsource. You cannot try to do everything. Companies have to outsource. But some things, CIO and the IT organization have to be involved because it is an integrated enterprise now. That's where all companies are going. Everything is integrated. The CRM systems, the BI systems, the ERP systems, and the marketing systems. Everything, they want everything working together. And how do you make that happen? When you outsource, yeah, it makes it a little bit challenging, but doesn't mean that you stop that. The key is make sure that you are you keep the CIO engaged as agencies so that you get them on your side. Then you can actually accomplish a lot of things within the organization. Otherwise, you'll run into roadblocks.
And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to give it to one other person before we move on to our next category. Does someone else want to take this one?
I think I'd like to say you have to change the interaction model. In Europe right now, they're piloting new programs for fast food retail. They're finding that they've got a 45% increase per ticket price for individuals that choose their own order, and they make that order on a large form factor touchscreen. Coke, fries, shake. Yes, I'll take the upsell. Yes, add me to your whatever special that you have. So the concept of can I take your order please is going to go away, and we're going to be able to get more definitive metrics off of someone who's actually interacting with our brands through new types of interfaces. This is just the very beginning, and the mechanisms that we've become accustomed to are going to change. And frankly, an open view in an email has no significance anymore. So how do we actually start to rationalize the data that we have from consumers interacting with our brands? And I think you have to change the interaction model, and you have to focus on the new identity of the person, and that's not in an email address.
Thanks. Moving on next to effective and agile operations. When it comes to increasing efficiency in agency operations or producing a better quality result, what tools do you see as game-changing and why?
we've embraced the concept of the balanced scorecard from the Harvard Business Review and Deming and total quality management, and we bring that to life through dashboards. So here's an example with a client that we work with at John Deere, and it's really a holistic view of everything that impacts their business. And the reason we find this so useful is that it forces a level of accountability, and we engage with our clients in a much more meaningful discussion on what we need to do. So in this example, you're looking at a particular dealer and the budget level that they'll have. We have market share data. So if somebody is telling us that they have a weakness in the tractor area, well, then how do we explain that their marketing communication are all geared towards residential type of equipment? So we bring, I think, much more smarter marketing executed. On the next page, you're seeing the ability to drill down into these areas. So it's not just at the high level, but right on the spot, we can find more insight on them. The next area is we talk about integration, and we find that corporate has all their initiatives laid out quarters or a year in advance. And yet, at the point of retail, at the point of sale, there's a lot of disconnect taking place. So we work with them on trying to link these two things together, and planning becomes a critical tool. So these retailers are forced to input what they're planning on doing, and the field force can go and measure that against what corporate is doing. And lastly, I think on the next slide, no, that's it, okay. So that to us is really at the core of what we do to bring efficiency, is try to force some level of accountability, be holistic in what we're looking at, because to the point you mentioned, it's not about one element that you're tracking, but it's a holistic picture. And how do we force that level of integration between corporate and the point of sale?
I would second that. We're seeing the same kind of thing with balanced scorecards and dashboards and business intelligence. We do a lot of work with a tool from Microsoft called SharePoint, which enables that and some other things. A big thing that we're seeing is implementing tool sets that will allow you to automate processes, both internal processes and processes that have you touching your customers. The efficiencies there are huge, and it's starting to get to the point where everybody's getting it, and if you don't have it, then you're at a competitive disadvantage. So we're starting to see more and more people want to ratchet up the level of engagement with those tools.
And I am an aggregator. So, the dashboards, definitely seeing those, and there's some favorites out there. I've talked about my favorite metrics aggregator, but I'll talk about the tool that I think is absolutely fantastic when it comes to a sharing platform right now. There's a tool out there called Ducky, D-U-K-K-Y, that is absolutely fantastic when it comes to viral campaigns for just providing sort of gasoline on the fire when you're trying to get people to transmit your viral campaign, basically passing an offer around. It does require a specific offer, but tools like Ducky, tools like the metrics tool, anything that starts to aggregate all of the things that we have to, on the fly, put together on a promotional timeline are real favorites of mine, and I think that we're going to see a lot more of those come out. The other thing that I don't think we've seen the full effect of yet is it just went live within the last month or so, and that is the effect of the iframe being integrated into Facebook. With that change, if you're not familiar with the center screen in Facebook, you're now able to basically put an entire website in there. Instead of just having to, have it look like a wall and really work very hard within Facebook's framework and code very specifically, you just basically do what you want to do and put it in there. It's not quite that simple, but it pushed us forward quite a bit. I don't think we've seen really how much we're going to be able to do with Facebook and how much Facebook is going to collide with web presences for some people now. And that is going to probably be a great thing when it comes to couponing and those type of experiences for people that have a strong affinity and relationship with their consumers through short-term promotional types of communications.
Any other comments?
I think the only thing that I would add to that is make sure that you have sharp engineers on your staff. As agencies, we often think we can outsource some of the technological challenges that we might face in terms of software integration. All of the data that we need to make definitive and game-changing decisions about marketing campaigns for our clients is already available. With a programmer in 15 minutes, you would be surprised at the intelligence that you can extract from Twitter, the intelligence that you can get from Facebook that already exists. No other platform gives you the ability to segment redheaded, horseback riding women in the state of Texas who like to gamble. That's what you have in terms of the analytics in Facebook. And it takes a very moderately skilled programmer to extract that data. So as an agency, have a staff of those individuals because the data already exists to make some really radical campaigns.
We have a couple more questions, but I want to see if there's any other questions from the audience at this point. Yes?
Yeah, there was an example about the camera, the checkout line.
Okay.
So what's the viewpoint of balancing some of those capabilities with consumer privacy? So just saw this weekend the King Kerry bill is up on the Hill, and there's a lot of plaintiff activity going on due to zip code and what's considered private data versus something the marketers can use. What's your view on how this will play out?
So the question was, in terms of the new technology out there, how does consumer privacy play into the role of that? So,
I think I'll just be bold and say, frankly, whatever you do in this room it has my ability to exploit it. From the notes that I see in public to your faces right here, that is public information. It exists in a world of which you have no control. Right now, there's a social jihad or whatever security war going on. You can see this every day. You saw this just recently with some of the major vendors. Every one of those vendors, I'm sure you've gotten the emails from Marriott and Hyatt and so forth. Your email and your information has already been compromised. So you have no security, at least in the virtual world right now. People are attacking those systems. All right, so if that's a scare tactic I'll throw on you as well. At the same time, everyone has a camera. People capture everything. Rodney King was just one example of the beginnings of this new technological age. We can capture anything, so there is no privacy. So now what is there? Well, there is identity management. And how do you manage that identity in a virtual world? Because it's going to exist in multiple different forms. And frankly, there's no solution for it. Because every cup that you touch today has a fingerprint on it. And I could take that fingerprint, use that against some database that the FBI might have, and then find out more information about you. So really, it's just about identity management. So we don't have identity control. And I don't have any answers for you, to be honest with you. I know that what happens in public stays in public, and it always will. For some of my shenanigans, I will never be president, and that's okay. So it's really, how do I manage that identity in a virtual and a marketing world, because I really don't have any control of it.
Hey, Chris, make sure you don't take any cups out of this room, please.
I'm sitting next to him tonight.
any other questions? Yeah.
We had one from Twitter, and it's probably a recap question now, but how has the structure of your agency changed over the past 2 to 3 years?
Am I on? Mm-hmm. Okay. We actually, in the last 3 years, we went from having no PR department to having a full-fledged PR offering that is probably 40% of our agency's billings now. We found that it was absolutely impossible to decouple something, and it's funny when I heard Jeff say this morning that DDB had gone to calling themselves a communications agency, because as small as we are in comparison, we actually found it impossible to describe what we did without using that same word. There just isn't a way to excise those traditional departments anymore. And so we offer social media, we offer PR, we offer advertising, we offer web development. All of those are very important to us. The other major change is that we're in a very strong partnership with and a joint venture with a, in-depth technology company to offer development. I mean, steel is not just steel. We are steel SMBology as well as part of a joint venture that allows us to develop IT solutions for our clients so that, as they go out in the world and they address their customers' needs, their brand is everything a customer remembers about them. And if something that their customer remembers about them is actually their technology interaction, then we need to make sure that that is a branded usability, that has a branded experience. It feels the way the brand needs to feel, but at the same time, it has to accomplish that with technical excellence, security, all of the things that an IT portion of their organization cares about as well. So, we had considerable changes. And honestly, I look at every time the market changes as a huge opportunity. I'm actually probably somebody that gets a little bit excited about chaos, which is probably not the norm for agency owners. But we've made tremendous changes and taken huge advantage of the talent that's in the market.
I'll close on one. How many of you share like raw assets? So I'm doing a keynote in a couple of weeks called Raw. We share every bit of raw production work with our clients. So the raw timelines from video production, the raw PDF files, the raw JPEGs, and the raw Photoshop files. We actually share a Dropbox. And if you haven't used Dropbox, it's really kind of the beginnings of this next wave of collaboration. Our customers, if they don't like one of the layouts and the ad pieces, they're smart enough they can go in and move and change the font and do it themselves. So we're sharing the actual raw assets directly with our clients. They can view the timelines in Final Cut and change the creative as they see fit. We do have versioning processes in place to do those things, but tools like Dropbox. I mean, I have access to every contract and every proposal we've ever written. I can make changes to that contract in Google Docs or on Dropbox in real time, and then my staff gets notified that file has changed. So things like more definitive collaboration tools at a very minute level are going to change the way the agencies operate because like I said, our customers are smarter. They've got people on staff who understand as much as we do, and they're intelligent enough to make judgments on their own campaigns.
Thank you. And that wraps up our panel discussion. Thank you all for your time and attention, and to our panelists for sharing their wisdom with us. Of course, they're always available throughout the conference to answer any questions. So thank you.